Welcome back to Sports Federation TV. We're moving our attention to something slightly different. Our partners on the show are the Western Cape Provincial Sport Confederation. One of its members is Western Cape Pigeons. We're now chatting racing pigeons. Andrew, you well?
Very well, thanks, Elton. Thanks
Good.
for the invitation.
You're welcome. Racing pigeons, let's start at the beginning. You release a pigeon and it flies back to its loft.
Correct.
In a simple statement.
Yeah.
That's what your sport is about.
That's what it's about.
Now explain to me how releasing a pigeon from wherever finds its way back to the loft, because that for many people is still a mystery.
Yeah, that's it's probably a mystery to a lot of pigeon fanciers as well. And not all of them find their way back.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, no, look, it's an inbred natural instinct that the pigeons have. Mm-hmm. So obviously it takes a lot of training and coaching for the pigeon to get used to the environment where it lives and where its pigeon loft is. And then obviously when you start training a pigeon at a young age, normally between the ages of 6 weeks and about 2 months, you'd start training a racing pigeon around its own loft, and it acclimatizes itself to the loft that it stays in.
Okay.
And then systematically you take it a couple of kilometers away from the loft and it flies home, until ultimately the racing starts, and the racing points start from about 200 kilometers, and the pigeons are liberated at a spot. In the Western Cape, our 200-kilometer race would be from Prince Albert Road. They then fly home to their lofts.
And they fly home to the individual loft. So how does the competition element work? Because my pigeon is flying to my loft, your pigeon's flying to your loft. How do you determine who's the winner?
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting, and that's a mathematical calculation. So what we do is we have a race point coordinate, and we have a pigeon loft coordinate, and then we work out the speed in meters per minute between the race point and the pigeon loft. And then for each individual loft, obviously the coordinates are different, but the speed that you work out in meters per minute indicates the speed that the pigeon flew. And of course, the fastest speed is then the winner on the day. And
that's determined by GPS coordinates?
Correct.
I assume?
Correct. Okay. Yeah, and with modern technology, every phone you can see where you are on the coordinates. Yeah.
Are these, talking about coordinates, are these pigeons tracked in any way or form?
There are places overseas where they do fit tracking devices to the pigeons. It's very interesting to see the paths that they fly. In South Africa, we don't do it. It's quite an expensive exercise.
I'm sure.
And the technology is not that well advanced. But I think in the near future, we'll probably be able to put a device onto a pigeon, and we'll be able to see exactly where they are between the race point and their pigeon loft.
So when my pigeon gets to the edge of my pigeon loft, do I record it, or how do I know that he's even in?
Okay, the modern technology again comes into play. Nowadays, racing pigeons have an electronic ring on their one foot, on their leg actually. The electronic ring's got a little microchip in it, and that microchip is then linked to a racing pigeon clock. And then when they hit the trap board on the pigeon loft, they walk across a pad, very, very similar to your mouse pad that you have on the computer. When they walk across that, they are scanned in, and the time is recorded.
That's simple, but I'm sure it costs a pretty penny for each loft owner to have the system.
Yes, absolutely. It's a mechanical, electronic system. The mechanical manual system still works, where you have rubber rings instead of the electronic rings.
Yes.
So when the pigeon arrives home from the race, you would take the rubber ring off and put it in a manual clock and record the time in that way. Yeah.
How expensive is racing pigeons as a sport? Okay, what's the most expensive and cheapest pigeon I need to start with?
Okay, Alton, yeah, look, the pigeon's only one part of it. You know, your question is quite a good one, because a lot of young people wanting to come into the sport ask me this. And they say to me, how much do I need to start off with? Well, the things you basically need would be to, first of all, build a pigeon loft, which is normally a wooden structure, similar to a Wendy house of sorts.
Yes.
Then you obviously need the clock that I've mentioned, either electronically or you need a manual one. Manual clock would set you back about 2,500 Rand. Electronic clock, anything from about 4,500 up to about 20,000. The loft, a Wendy house, 3x2 or 4x3 would probably cost you in the vicinity of about 6,000 Rand to put up. Then of course there's the feeding of the pigeons, there's the purchasing of the pigeons. Pigeons can be anything from 500 Rand per pigeon up to 800,000 Rand per pigeon.
800,000?
Correct. That's the South African record for a racing pigeon.
Wow. Has that pigeon actually won?
Yeah,
to be at
it's-
800,000. I mean, it's a lot of money to be spending.
Yeah, the Pigeon actually raced at Sun City and achieved an amazing results there, and was purchased by a pigeon fancier in Gauteng
Okay.
for 800,000.
So what's the most expensive, or what's the highest winning prize money in South Africa? Talking about an 800,000 rand pigeon.
Yeah, the $1 million race, which used to be at Sun City, is the major competition in South Africa. The total prize money is in the vicinity of $1 million for that specific race. It's broken up into team prize money. It's broken up into individual prize money. They pay the first 200 places in a race like that. But there again, 4,000 pigeons take part in the race. So 200 is only about a small percentage of that number.
Yep.
In the Western Cape, we do have a couple of major money races. But the most you can probably win in a race in the Western Cape would be about 100,000 for the day.
That's not bad for a day's
Still
outing.
good money.
For a little pigeon.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at some of the footage of a pigeon release. Check this out.
In die volgende 10 secondes sal dit nou losmaak. Alle voorspoed vir almal die duiweboere. Ag gaan hulle. Gaan hulle.
As you can see, that was the release of pigeons. One of the ways in which pigeons are released and they fly back to their loft. Andrew Kruger, tell us a bit about some of the last highlights, or the last few highlights of what's happened in the season.
Okay, the pigeon racing season, as far as racing concerned, is over for the year. The last pigeon race was from a place called Kimberley last weekend for the Federated Board. The major race for the year was from a place called Hopetown, and that took part on the 10th of September. And that was won by Mr. Kat Snyman from Veldrift. As a matter of fact, there was a strong southeaster on the day, and they took 3 out of the top 5 positions. Second place went to Gerrit Stoffberg and Grades Wendt, and they live in Durbanville. And then the pigeons worked their way up from the west side to the east side of the Western Cape.
And I mean, you guys do a good amount of work out, not only in Cape Town area, but you just mentioned different areas, but also out in Ceres and all of those others. That is what else is happening in the Western Cape.
Yeah, Elton, there are 1,792 pigeon fancies in the Western Cape in total. Yeah, it's one of the few sports in the Confederation where we are represented in all 6 of the different regions of the Western Cape Sports Confederation. We do a lot of work amongst the younger people. We're trying as far as possible to get school children involved in pigeon racing because they have slightly more time than the working compatriots. And of course, we also find that school children, once they get involved with pigeon racing, they become very committed to the sport, and they also then learn a lot of discipline and dedication through that. Takes them off the street, all the normal evils that you have at youth that have too much leisure time. The pigeon racing does take up that slack.
You mentioned so many fanciers. Is there some kind of structure where these guys can help each other? Does that happen within the Federated Board?
Yes, it does definitely happen. We have structures within the club setup where your more experienced pigeon fanciers would mentor your younger pigeon fanciers coming in. I'd like to see pigeon racing going very much in the way in which a lot of the other sports go, as far as having a pigeon racing academy in the Western Cape. And I know the different sports bodies that fund this type of thing would be happy to also look at something in that form for pigeon racing. So we are looking at that sternly, and we obviously in the future would want to discuss that with the authorities as well.
That'd be quite interesting. Is it the pigeon or is it the coach that gets the training?
I think there's a lot of training both ways.
That's a huge debate. I mean,
absolutely.
And that can go on for hours, literally.
Absolutely. But you don't need to be physically, have any physical prowess to be a pigeon fancier. You know, any of your other sports, which does a lot of outdoor activity, are pretty physical. Pigeon racing, it's not an easy sport, but you don't have to be as physical as with a lot of your other sports.
For sure.
But it does allow you to exercise your your initiative, and it does allow you to exercise your determination and a lot of the other traits that school children need to also achieve academically.
But it also helps you build a good social network.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. And the club systems normally help with that as well.
How do people find out more about racing pigeons, Andrew? Is there a website? Is there contact details?
Yes, we've got a national website called South African National Pigeon Organisation, SANPO, and people can look on that website. Locally, we've got a website called the Platinum Pigeon League, which people can go into as well. And of course, they can contact me as well.
Andrew Kruger, thank you for your time. Thank you for all that you guys do to make sport different within the Western Cape.
Thank you, Elton. Thanks for the opportunity.
You're welcome. We've come to the end of the show. You can catch our repeats tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. You can also catch each segment within the next 2 weeks on YouTube on the Western Province Sports Council channel. Have an amazing weekend. Play hard, be safe. See you Friday, 9 o'clock. Cheers.